I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'll say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States, to the republic, one nation, indivisible. So do we have any visitors, comments?
I did not have any emailed to me this week.
Okay, sounds good then. Are all the council folks on?
Looks like we're missing Gwen and Jan, if I counted right.
All right, then we'll wait a couple minutes.
In the meantime, Your Honor, just a note that we will be removing item number 6 from the agenda, housing expenses for the interim village administrator. That issue was clarified by the clerk earlier today.
Sounds good. Darwin, have you heard from Jan?
I have not heard anything from him, no.
Okay.
His wife called today and Holly told me that he would not be on tonight.
All right, then we have a quorum. So we'll approve the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 meeting.
I make a motion, we approve the minutes of the February 8th, 2021 meeting.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve council meeting minutes of February 8th, 2021. Are there any corrections or questions? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
When?
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Minutes approved. Discussion action items. Number 1 would be authorization to engage executive search. Village administrator position. First of all, I'd like to thank the ad hoc committee, Mike, Jerry, and Gwen. You guys did a wonderful job going over all the quotes that we got, and I appreciate all the hard work that you guys did. Darwin, would you like to go over this?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. The ad hoc executive search firm review committee is recommending that council engage the services of Walsh Municipal Services of Okemos, Michigan, to handle the village administrator recruitment process. The village solicited proposals from qualified firms and received 5 proposals, and I provided council with a list of the firms that we've received proposals from. After careful consideration, the council is recommending Walsh Municipal Services. Specific considerations of the committee included the firm's years in business, qualifications, thoroughness of proposals and scopes of work, quality of presentation and work products as exhibited in the proposals, proposed time schedules, and cost. I did contact 3. I was able to contact 3 of Mr. Walsh's references. All 3 gave glowing recommendations of this firm. I provided council with a copy of all of the proposals that we received for your information, but the committee is recommending Walsh Municipal Services. And I should note, Your Honor, that Mr. Walsh is in attendance at tonight's meeting. If you would like to turn it over to him for a brief introduction, and he is available to answer any questions you may have regarding his proposal.
All right, thank you, Darwin. Mr. Walsh, would you like to say a couple things?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council, and Administrator McCleary. I appreciate being recommended this evening. We take a lot of pride in what we do. Our firm's been in business for 23 years. I have a real affinity for Blissfield, having grown up in Jackson and going to school in Toledo. And 223 is very familiar to me over the years. In fact, I remember back in the I don't know if anyone remembers, but back in the 90s, I was going through there a lot around 1990 when I was at grad school. And there were a lot of signs in, is it Ryguy or Riggy Township?
Ryguy.
Yeah, there was a big project that was being fought by the community. And there were signs everywhere. And that's one of the things I remember. I don't remember what, I think it was like a power plant or something that was going in there. But it was an interesting time in the community. We will... if approved, we'll have stakeholder interviews over the next month, which means I'll be talking to all of you and community members that you asked me to talk to shape the type of candidate that that you're looking for, and a whole bunch of interesting things about the process, the candidate. You know, education and experience are one thing, but I always tell my clients, you got to have the right fit. They have to fit in Blissfield. You know, what fits in Blissfield may not fit in Royal Oak, may not fit in Okemos. You have to find the right fit for your community. And that's what the stakeholder interviews are all about. We shape that all together, and then we put a profile together, and we go forward with that around the end of March. April 23rd will be the deadline to apply. And then I'll be meeting with you in early May to select your candidates. I set up the interviews. I handle the process from A to Z, from the initial stakeholder interviews to getting a contract with the new manager. And like I said, we've had a lot of clients in Michigan over the years, a lot of repeat clients, and we take a lot of pride in what we do. And we want to make sure we do it all legally. We follow the Open Meetings Act. There's a community up north that just didn't. They had some closed interviews, and we will make sure that we adhere to the Open Meetings Act all along the way of what can be closed and what cannot be closed. So that's a little bit about me, my firm, and this process. And I'm looking forward to working with you if selected. It'll be the only victory I've ever had in Blissfield, because I'm used to going down there and playing baseball as a kid and a young adult. Your baseball program, if I recall, I don't know if it still is, but was really, really strong in the 80s and 90s. And your American Legion team was even really good as well. I got beat by them as well. So never had any success in Blissfield, but we're hoping tonight to break that chain. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mr. Walsh. Appreciate it. Are there any questions for Mr. Walsh from anyone?
I have one quick question.
Go ahead.
Mr. Walsh, I noticed I was on the ad hoc committee, and one of the things that stuck out to me is you work quite often with smaller communities. Is that something you tend to focus on versus the large ones, or can you explain that for us?
Sure. Thank you, Councilor Hayes. We do. We got started on working. I'll take you back to 1997. I had just started as city manager in St. Joe down in Lake Michigan, and the community of Stevensville, which is right next door, needed a manager. And the president of the village asked me, community of 1,200, asked me if I would help them. And my boss as the city commissioner said, sure, go ahead. That'd be great. So that's where it all started, by helping a town of 1,200. And to this day, the village president of Stevensville is still a reference for me, and that's how we got started. We do serve a lot of small communities, but as our firm grows, so does our reputation, thankfully. And in fact, we just were awarded the City of Marquette's recruitment, which is a big deal for us, for a little small firm that started out on the back of a napkin 20 some years ago.
Frank, that was something when you say us, how many folks do you have there within your group?
I have myself, and I have a couple people who help me out on a part-time basis, but I also have 8 regional partners. So I use the regional association. We have 8 regions in the state of manager groups. And I've been in the Michigan manager group for, well, Mr. McClary knows, we go way back to 1990 or even before. So I know most of the managers in Michigan. And so I use those resources as well. And one of the things I always try to tell my clients is important to get the manager you want, but it's also important to know who you don't want just as much. And I will sift through the applicants for you and help you in that process. But it's a very small firm. I work a lot of hours, and I really have a passion for doing this. And I won't let you down. I'll be with you to the very end.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If I could chime in, Your Honor, one of the things that was a recurring theme when I talked to Mr. Walsh's references was Mr. Walsh's availability all times of the day and night and on weekends, his responsiveness, his commitment to the work that he does. I was very impressed with the comments that I heard from the mayor of Alpena, as well as others about their satisfaction with the work that Mr. Walsh has done for them.
All right, then. We have a recommended motion from Darwin.
Actually, there are 2, Your Honor.
Oh, okay, yeah, 2.
I would make the first recommendation that to approve an amendment to the fiscal year 2021 budget to provide a supplemental appropriation from the general fund reserves to the appropriate account in the village administrator's department in the amount of $13,800 for the purpose of engaging executive search services relating to the recruitment and selection of a new village administrator.
Darwin, is this a 2-part motion, or do we have to vote on these separately?
You should vote on them separately.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a recommended motion to approve the amendment of the FY 2021 budget to provide supplemental appropriation from the general fund reserves to appropriate account in the village administrator's department in an amount of $13,800 for the purpose of engaging executive search services relating to the recruitment and selection of new village administrator. Are there any questions? Any other comments? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Harry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carried.
I'll make a motion to authorize the engagement of Walsh Municipal Services LLC of Okemos, Michigan in the amount of $13,800 in accordance with the terms and conditions of the firm's proposal. I think there's a page 2. Dated February 11th, 2021 for services relating to the recruitment and selection of a new village administrator.
I support.
Moved and supported to authorize the engagement of Walsh Municipal Services LLC of Okemos, Michigan, in the amount of $13,800 in accordance with the terms and conditions of the firm's proposal dated February 11, 2021, for the services relating to the recruitment and selection of new village administrator. Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, Bob, speaking for those who are on the committee, I think it would be nice for the rest of the council just to know, looking at these proposals, a lot of them were very similar. Some of the few differences were just cost. And that's probably a lot of why we went with Mr. Walsh. He was the lower bid, or one of the lower bids, but he also did have the history of the amount of years that he's been doing this kind of job, as well as the municipal connections that he does have throughout the state. I think a lot of us feel that our next administrator or manager probably will be somewhere from Michigan, most likely. And Mr. Walsh does have a good connection with his municipal background in helping us recruit that person. Everything else is pretty much same timeline, scope of research. So I think we're going to go with the right person here.
All right, thanks, Mike. So you can call the roll, Lisa.
James,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Congratulations, Mr. Walsh. Look forward to working with you.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. I'm honored, and I will work really closely with you, and it'll be a royal search.
A royal.
Thanks to the ad hoc team. There was a lot to unpack in this memo. So I'm very thankful that you guys took the time to go through those proposals and bring us the best selection. Thanks again.
Thanks, James. I was just going to say thanks to Mike and Gwen and Darwin too for getting together. There was a lot to unpack in those. So I appreciate the ad hoc committee's work on this.
Thank you, and I will ditto those same sentiments. And Frank, anxious to have you on board. Really looking to see forward to see how you will present Blissfield in our very best light, because you certainly did a wonderful job in that packet, as I'm sure many of you had the opportunity to see. So anxious to work with you, sir. Thank you.
All right, the second action item is to award the contract 2021 tree planting services.
Your Honor, administration's requesting that council award the 2021 tree planting services contract to Natural Lawn Care LLC of Blissfield. The village advertised for bids. We've received only one bid. The 2021 tree planting services project involves the planting of 18 trees of various species in accordance with the village's bid specifications. And I provided you with a copy of DPW Supervisor Castle's memorandum recommending the award of the contract.
I'll move
If I
council.
may, sorry, Mike, go ahead.
No, I'll move council award the village's 2021 street tree planting project to Natural Lawn Care LLC for their quoted price of $5,400.
I'll second that.
Been moved to award the contract for 2021 tree planting services to Natural Lawn Care LLC of Blissfield, Michigan for the amount of $5,400.
I only have one question, Bob, and I see that Brent is on here. Brent, could you remind us who we had last year? Was it LLC the same service?
Jake did it the year before. We did not plant trees last year.
Okay, so the last time we planted trees, it was still that same service. It was still Jake.
Yes.
Gotcha. All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Barb,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carried. Sorry about that. All right, the next action item would be the award of bid sale of the 1990 L 8000 dump truck.
You got the tree stump grinding first, Bob.
Oh, okay, sorry about that.
Your Honor, administration is requesting that council award the contract for the 2021 tree removal and stump grinding services to Roke Tree Service of Metamora, Ohio. The services will involve the removal of trees and grinding of stumps at 6 locations and removal of 3 stumps only at 2 locations in accordance with the village's bid specifications. The work must be completed by June 30th. The village advertised for bids and received 2 bids, and we provided you with a copy of those bids. I also provided you with a copy of the memorandum from Supervisor Castle recommending the award of the contract to Roke Tree Service.
If I may again, Brent, could you just remind us who has performed these duties in the past?
He did it last year, did a good job.
Okay. Thank you.
I know, and I'm pretty sure it says that right in the packet, but she thinks she's just doing that so everybody, you know, can.
Melissa.
Input, I think.
I'll make a motion. Council award the village's 2021 street tree removal project to Roke Tree Service for the quoted price of $8,500.
I'll support. Okay.
Moved and supported to do the recommended motion. Are there any other questions or comments? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
James,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes. Motion carried.
Now it's the dump, I think the dump truck now,
Yeah.
Bob.
Yep, I thought I was unmuted. Next action item is to award the bid sale of the 1990 L 8000 dump truck.
Your Honor, administration is requesting that village council award the bid for the sale of the dump truck to Ken Laverty of Adrian, Michigan. The village advertised for bids for the sale of this surplus vehicle. We only received 1 bid. It is the opinion of DPW Supervisor Castle that the bid amount is fair and that the bid should be awarded to Mr. Laverty.
We have a recommended motion.
I'll make the motion to award the bid for the sale of the 1990 L8000 dump truck to Ken Laverty of Adrian, Michigan in the amount of $5,106 and authorize the village administrator to execute all necessary documents relating to the sale of the vehicle.
I'll second Gwen's motion.
Moved and seconded to approve the recommended motion. Are there any questions or comments? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Jerry,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Gwen,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, motion carried. Next action item is village manager ordinance.
Your Honor, administration is requesting that village council review the proposed village manager ordinance prepared by myself and the village attorney based on previous discussions that we've had with council regarding desired changes to the chief administrative officer position. I outlined for you some of the things that would be accomplished by the new ordinance. I did note that Village Attorney Jubai reviewed the proposed ordinance and approved the same as to legality and form and content. In the ordinance itself, you can see that the changes that the village attorney made were outlined in red. I'm happy to answer any non-legal questions for the council regarding the ordinance. And if you have any legal questions, I would direct you to Mr. Jubai.
I do have one question or comment. Going through this, I'm pretty happy with all of it. But section 5, number 3, I've really been wrestling with this one, and that gives the next village manager the sole authority to appoint, suspend, or remove department heads with no involvement from village council. The only thing we would be involved in would be the appointment of that position. I'm fine with the hourly employees as in number 4, because they would go through a process where the department head would bring that situation to the village manager, and there's someone to fall back on there. Whereas if a village manager and a department head, say, the DPW supervisor, got into it and had, a disagreement of sorts, the manager lets go the DPW superintendent, and council was generally happy with the performance, then we have no recourse. I don't know how anybody else feels about that, but I'm really wrestling with that one.
I am as well, Jerry. The same one, 3 and 4 under section 5. For the same reasons that you said, I'm assuming that personnel policies and procedures would have to be rewritten as well to coincide with that if we did make those changes to the ordinance, because there would need to be some sort of appeal process, rebuttal process, or whatever that could be brought forth by any employee. Tech would probably, be seen by council, whether it's a day-to-day member of the staff or whether it's a department head. I guess I would just want some clarification on, what is the recourse, what is the appeal process regarding a dismissal or a termination or potentially even an appointment. It's hard. It's a situation we need to tiptoe around, because I can see both sides of the aisle. We also need to give our faith and our trust in our village manager, because he is the one that's running the day-to-day operations of the village. And the moment that something like this happens, where you have a rebuttal, you're having an appeal process, and you don't go along with a valid recommendation by the village manager, you're probably going to lose that manager in the long run, because you're going to lose the respect of that manager. You're also probably not going to have that trust, and they're going to seek employment elsewhere. So trying to look at the big picture, look at all options, I do see it as, we need to trust the day-to-day operations of the manager, not micromanage, but also protect the employees from those sort of, disagreements, for lack of a better term, if there were, between department heads and the manager himself or herself.
And what I would like to do is Darwin, are we understanding that correctly? Is what Jerry and how Mike are interpreting what's stated there? Would that be accurate?
It is accurate.
Okay.
That the council would have the confirmation authority over appointments to administrative officers or department head positions. But it would be at the discretion, the way the ordinance is currently drafted, it would be at the discretion of the manager to take other personnel actions.
Okay. And how I'm with you, I understand as well, Mike, it's I can see both sides of the coin. However, after last week's meeting, I did some thinking, some processing, and I know you guys have heard me say this before, how I try to relate things to school. And I look at it as our school board. We have our school board, and our school board relies on the principal / superintendent to do that job. The board itself does not step in. And that's how I liken this, is that we are a council. We are very similar to a school board in that aspect. And they do rely on the other person's professionalism and their job. But I do understand where you're coming from, Mike. I really do. However, I would lean as leaving the description as it states in the paperwork we have in front of us, where the manager would have that opportunity.
I would be fine with it if I knew for sure there was an appeal process for department heads. Obviously, we've been through something similar here recently last fall over a wage issue, and it went through that appeal process. So as long as there's some sort of process where an employee, especially a department head, can come to council to appeal a decision of termination, I guess I'd be okay with it. Especially if council is happy with the performance of the work.
Another question, Darwin, would be, we last summer or whatever appointed the clerk and treasurer, correct? So that ordinance would have to be changed as well, because the clerk and the treasurer previously were voted upon by the electorate, and then the council at that time decided to change it to where council appointed. Now you're wanting that appointment as well placed in the discretion of the village manager.
Correct. And so if the council moves forward with adopting this ordinance, either as is or with some modifications, we would have to review all of our other ordinances to make sure that they do not conflict with the authority of the village manager position.
Mr. Walsh, do you see this as a hurdle to attract some of the best talent by not extending full authority to their new role?
Yes. So typically, I don't know that I have worked with any communities where there's a step of redress by a department head. to the city council, township board, or like. Typically, the manager is responsible for the carrying out of all HR and administrative duties, and that would be, something that candidates will look at when they come here. If they've got it going on at all, they're going to want to know what their authority is and all that. And also, they're going to look at what the community's been through in the last couple months. They're all going to look at that, and then if they look at that and they see they don't have the authority that most managers have in Michigan. And I also get Councilmember Hayes' question, though, as far as how do I address that? My response to that is there's all sorts of ways for a department head. First of all, some are unionized, so there's a union process. And if you're not unionized, then you do have the court system available to you. If there's a wrongful termination of any kind, there's always an ability for that department head to seek justice. If you set it up where, and I'll just tell you what I know, I'm not telling you what to do, I'm just telling you from 30 some years experience. It's just like the superintendent at the schools, as Councilmember Dusa brought up. The superintendent has all the authority when it comes to the principals, the athletic director, the coaches, and all of that. And you might want to set it up give it a shot that way. And see if it works out for you. And if it doesn't, then you can always go back and change it. But to answer your question directly, most managers are going to want to come in and have the ability to have complete, I don't want to say control, but authority over the HR function or the organization.
Thanks for that. And I think Darwin has spoken to the stability amongst our department heads and their capabilities. He's been very pleased with them from the get-go. We've known them and worked with them, seen them in our community. I would not expect a new manager to come in and start making any changes. In fact, if that was to happen, it would throw a lot of red flags for me. So with the department heads we have, I see a lot of longevity in those roles. It's almost like extending false authorization, because I really don't expect to see any changes being made anytime soon.
I appreciated everybody's input. Thank you.
I personally do fear the unionization of our staff, though. I don't want to see that happen. I think unions are just going to take us down a road that we don't want to be at. And we've kind of been par for the course in the way that we've been operating under the council appointment and the village administrator duties. My only fear is, how is staff going to read this? Are they going to be concerned for their jobs? How do we present that information to them so that they're sold that that they have some sort of safety net feature in place, to where if they just don't see eye to eye with whatever that administrator or manager is, that they potentially could just be booted for no reason or just unjust cause.
You bring up a good point, Mike, and that's exactly why I'm a little concerned about it, because I have talked to a couple of employees who are concerned about this exact clause.
However, we could go ahead and flip that coin over, and we could say the same thing, that the employees could say with a particular result of the election that they are concerned for their position, their job, because of who is on council. And so it would take the politics out of it, perhaps that, the every 2-year voting, and that takes it right out of there. We're not a part of that. And that could be something, like I said, on the other side of the coin, that I would lean towards, is taking out the total politics. You've got your guy there, he's going to, or girl, and they're going to do, they're going to do the responsible thing. That's why we're going through the process of using Frank Walsh's, firm, so that we do have that opportunity to pick the very best person. I would assume that very best person would have the common sense to do exactly what you're saying there, James. We've got a good team. Let's roll forward and kind of go from there.
If there aren't any other comments or questions, we can call the roll, Lisa.
Hang on, sorry, Bob. One
Yeah.
quick, there is a section in there, Darwin, do we have to address that right now? It's in yellow and it says the amount that, of authority for spending. Do we have to address that with this motion? Or does it encompass with this motion, I should say?
That section was just highlighted because
Okay.
originally I had put a dollar amount in there. Currently, our dollar threshold is $1,000. We really need to take a look at the purchasing ordinance and increase that dollar limit. It is extremely low. But then I changed it, and I highlighted it because I changed that after Jeff had reviewed the ordinance, and I want to make sure and flag that.
Okay.
So that this ordinance was just general and referred us back to our other policies, whether the
Okay.
council adopts it by resolution or by ordinance, so that we don't have to keep changing a bunch of ordinances every time we change the dollar limit for purchasing.
Okay, right, thank you.
Yeah, also, we should mention in section 2 there, Darwin, it says the majority, the first sentence, majority of council, you've got may and shall appoint. I guess
Yeah.
you're just getting rid of the shall, right? And it'd be changed to may. Is that correct?
Actually, the village attorney, from what I understand, and Jeff may want to chime in on this, I think he plugged in may as an option for the council. I can tell you that my position is that the language shall should remain in the ordinance. If the council decides that you don't want to appoint a village manager, the proper way to do that is to repeal the village manager ordinance. But to have an ordinance that says you've created an office of village manager and then you just don't appoint somebody to it, I don't think is the best practice that council should be undertaking. If you decide at some point you no longer want to have a village manager, then the proper way to deal with that is to repeal the ordinance. Jeff, I don't know if you wanted to.
Yeah, I don't have a real problem with that. I changed it because the statute uses the word may and doesn't use shall. So that's the only reason I changed it, to coincide or to conform to what the statute said.
Yeah.
I agree that if you don't appoint somebody, then you do away with the ordinance. But that was just for conformance sake with the actual statute.
Yeah, and I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but what Jeff is referring to is in Act 3 of 1895, it says that the council may appoint a village manager. And so it gives the council the option as to whether or not you create such a position or you don't. And so I agree with Jeff in that regard. But what you're doing with this ordinance is you're making the decision you are going to have a village manager. You're going to have a chief administrative officer that takes on all of the administrative duties that have been assigned in Act 3 to other positions. The village president, certain oversight of the village clerk and village treasurer offices. Now you're consolidating those administrative powers into a village manager position. And once you're doing that, then I say with this ordinance, for as long as the policy of the council is you're going to have a village manager, the ordinance should say that you shall appoint a village manager. A future council may decide that the position's no longer needed, in which case you repeal the ordinance.
Is this also accurate, Darwin, with what's going on here is when a motion is made, one of the possible ones is, obviously this is going to be revisited. This is not going to be in stone as of today because we had that period of time in between now and the actual determination, correct?
Actually, the village attorney determined that because this is really an amendment to the current ordinance, you're making some significant changes, but he has determined it's still an amendment to the current ordinance. The referendum period that's required under state statute does not apply.
Oh, it does not. Okay.
So the council could adopt the ordinance tonight if you wish to do so. I would recommend that you give it 2 weeks, especially for the public who is hearing this for the first time, and that you place it on your March 8th agenda for consideration for adoption.
So it's not necessarily for the referendum you're suggesting the time frame for. It's simply for to gather some information, some insight, and some processing for us as well as our residents.
Correct. And my recommendation would be that this be placed on your March 8th agenda for consideration for adoption.
I agree. Since we already have the position created by a previous ordinance, we're essentially just renaming it because manager is actually used in the statute. And we're detailing the duties more clearly. So it wouldn't necessarily have to be subject to a referendum. If the council wants to do that, I certainly don't have any objection to doing that, but I don't think we need to.
I would agree with Darwin then, if we just want to put it off onto March the 8th meeting, have the public and maybe even council look it over. We've looked it over several times, but
and input from staff as well probably wouldn't be a bad thing to hear.
Exactly. So
going back to section 6 then regarding the purchase authority, Darwin, is that something you want to discuss or no?
I don't think this language changes anything that any of our other policies, other than it makes it clear that the village manager is ultimately responsible for the purchasing procedures and making sure that we have compliance. But in terms of if the council adopts this ordinance, I would want to then present some changes to the purchasing ordinance. Because as I noted for the council previously, $1,000 limit for sealed competitive bids is today a very low amount. I would recommend that we at least go to $2,500 before we're seeking going through a competitive bidding process. I think you'll find that the norm probably for most communities is probably about $5,000. But for a community this size, I would feel comfortable with the council just moving to a $2,500 limit for just price quotes before we have to go through a competitive bid process.
I entirely agree with that. I think 1,000 is way too low, just based on my history with former administrator Wanacott, whatnot. Things break, things need to be replaced right away. You know, we've had issues with the wastewater treatment plant, the water treatment plant, for example, where a pump's gone down, whatnot, and it's had to be repaired right away. I would say somewhere between 3,000 to 5,000, probably not over 5,000, but in that general vicinity would be appropriate for the village manager to authorize those emergency purposes or purchases.
Is that a motion, Mike? I'll second that.
I mean, we're going to approve the whole thing, but that's probably somewhere around the vicinity that I would want to see in 2 weeks when we approve the whole thing, Darwin.
Okay.
Can we get language similar to what Mike just said in that section, and so we can review it with a $5,000 amount?
I would recommend that we not put it in this ordinance. We have a separate ordinance for purchasing, and it would be a simple amendment to that ordinance. But I can prepare that and present it at the next meeting as well, with Village Attorney Jubai's review.
Great, thank you.
Sounds good. we can move on. Next action item is the appointment of Ray Jones to the DDA Main Street Board.
Your Honor, I didn't know if you wanted me to comment on this. This is really your item. I will just note for the council that it is under the authority of the village president as chief executive officer of the municipality to make appointments to the Downtown Development Authority Board. And the village president has done so subject to your confirmation of his appointment.
Thanks, Darwin. I was going to say the exact same thing.
And that's a little bit of a change from the past too as well, because what normally we used to do would be like a recommendation from whatever board would take that recommendation to council. So say, you know, the DDA Main Street Board would recommend appointment of whatever specific person to their board, and then council would officially, quote, rubber stamp it.
Right.
So what we're going to do is just kind of follow more. So we're going to put the village president as kind of that middle appointment personnel.
Well, my intention was if the village president wants to solicit input from a particular board or commission for their recommendation before he or she makes that appointment and presents it to council, that would be at the discretion of the village president. But under state law, the village president is not required to do that. And so I just wanted to be respectful of what the law requires and respectful of the village president's position and discretion. And the DDA board did discuss this and did support that appointment. So.
Oh, with that being said and the change, then I will make a motion that council affirm village president Valdez's appointment of Ray Jones to the Blissfield Downtown Development Authority Main Street Board for a term to expire June 30th, 2024.
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded to approve Ray Jones for the DDA Main Street Board, term ending in June of 2024. Any comments or questions? If not, you can call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes, motion carried. Thanks. All right, we go to the officers report or department reports. Did you want to discuss this, Darwin?
Your Honor, other than to just note for the council that it was requested that that council receive monthly reports from the boards and commissions. So this is intended to try to address that request from the council. I can tell you that department directors, they're very open to any suggestions from council members as to any changes you want to see in the format that the reports are presented to you. I know there were some suggestions from some council members. We tried to fit those as best that we could, but some of the reports are statistical reports. So we welcome any input that the council may have on continuing to refine those reports. But this is intended to address that request from council.
Are there any comments or questions? Okay, then.
I'll make a quick comment. I was one of the council people that had requested to have some sort of a report, a monthly report, and I appreciate that from all three of the groups very much. Thank you so much. I particularly, this is just a Gwen thing, I guess. I really like the format that Darwin, you have used, and I know that Parks and Rec has gone ahead and done that as well. And I think that just gives us a real good, bird's eye view of what's been going on, and I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the reports being there too. It was much easier to read, and then we can keep up with them. We don't have to go over each item, but I liked having it in hand.
Okay, we'll move on to the officers' report. Treasurer.
I have nothing to include, but I do want to point out that the water vendor is here. And it's just going to be a matter of time when it's installed. Right now, the current vendor is frozen, so we are not generating any revenue right now. Nora and I are working with a credit card company so that we can get it prepared for when people start swiping their cards and it goes right into the bank accounts. So I've already opened a separate bank account for the credit card deposits to go in. Hopefully it'll be within a month. I don't know where Nora stands with that. So everything's going good.
Thank you. Clerk?
I had a quick question for Brandon.
Yeah, go ahead, sorry.
What's the status of our yearly audit? Have we heard anything yet?
The status of the yearly audit, Darren paid it out. I think in the last council meeting, they're supposed to be hearing something within the first part of March. So I have not had any contact with them for a month now. So the last I heard was that one email that I spoke to about last time. So Darren had let me know that at the last council meeting, the first part of March, because we have to have our state reports filed by March 31st. So it has to be done.
And if I could also respond to that, because I just saw late this afternoon that I had received some preliminary documents from the auditors. So if there's anything significant in there, I will definitely pass along that information to the council. But based on what the auditors had previously told me, we could expect the audit report in early to mid-March.
Thank you both.
Is Darwin/Brandon, I also remember Brandon, you stating something about the forensic audit. Let's just, if the forensic audit, that situation is not resolved by that March 31st date, will that be an issue for this current audit?
I do not believe so, because I believe they will be able to finish the audit report with that information not being
okay.
So.
Okay, thank you, Brandon.
Welcome.
Yeah, the audit report may end up having some type of notation in it, indicating that there is additional investigation or work being done. But by law, we have to have the audit report done within a certain period of time, and that is within 6 months of the end of the fiscal year. So the auditors are in a time crunch to get that done.
Clerk?
I don't have anything tonight.
All right, thank you, Lisa. Attorney?
I don't have anything specific for you tonight. I will have a memo in the form similar to the department heads for you on pending matters at the next meeting.
Thank you. Police Chief?
Nothing.
Thank you. Administrators report.
Your Honor, and members of council, you received the village administrators report for tonight. First of all, I want to say thank you to the village attorney for his hard work on the village manager ordinance. I appreciate his valuable insight and professional expertise on that. Your Honor, I provided council with an update on the village administrator position. we've discussed a couple items tonight that you've taken care of. The first was the selection of the executive search firm. And congratulations to Frank Walsh and his firm. I know we're all looking forward to working with him in our various capacities. And I'm confident he will do a great job for you. Also, you discussed the village manager ordinance, and we will have that on your March 8th agenda for consideration for adoption. Also, at your March 8th meeting, we will the village manager job description updated with the language that's in the ordinance, so that we can make sure that both support that the job description supports what is in the new ordinance. I noted for you the work on the Mitten bid system. We have joined Mitten, and our web-based platform is set up. Jennifer San Giorgi with BidNet Direct has been absolutely awesome to work with. The link to the new bid system is on our website. Staff will be going through training on March 3rd. Any council members who would like to sit in on that training so that you can see how the Mitten bid system works, or I should say how BidNet Direct bid solicitation system works, you're more than welcome to join us for that training session, and I will make sure that you're accommodated. I provided you with an update on the Rotary Club Trail project. Jake continues to work on that project. We finally got him access to the system and able to go in and plug in his information into the application form itself on the My Rec Grants portal. He will be presenting the conceptual plan for the trails to the Planning Commission at their March 1st meeting, and he'll be making a presentation to you on March 8th. Staff and I have been working on website updates. Thank you so much to President Pro Tem Dusa for your wonderful suggestions and input on the website. We did do a lot of work over the past few days on the website to rearrange the menu items. We added quite a bit of content. That I did note this is a work in progress. We will continue to build on this website to make it as informative and useful for our citizens as possible. I noted for council the meeting that President Valdez and I had with Senator Zorn and Lenaway Now and some of our staff members regarding the ethanol plant and any future plans for that property. I just gave you a brief synopsis of the results of that meeting. Also, I had another meeting with the Coalition on Safe and Affordable Water and Sewage. We continue our discussions with the coalition. Again, I want to thank the coalition members for their outstanding work on trying to find ways to make the wastewater treatment plant upgrades and the resulting water and sewer rates affordable for our customers. They are a dedicated group of people. I also want to thank President Valdez and our outstanding village team for their hard work on this. We had some of our staff members involved in the last meeting with the coalition. And I can't say enough good things about everyone who's involved in this and working together. This is how we get things done, by being willing to talk to each other, support each other, and do everything we can to work together. I also provided you with an update on the Aquatic Center opening preparations. We are continuing our administrative meetings to continue to plan for the opening of the pool facility. And I will keep council updated. There will be some decisions that council will have to make over the next couple months, and I will keep council in the loop on those as we move along. Our crossing guard has resigned, and so we will start advertising for that position. We are also supposed to have a backup position that is currently vacant. So we are advertising for both of those positions. Time is of the essence in getting that done. The Village Hall janitor position, our part-time position, we have advertised for that position. We are currently taking applications. Our first review of applications will be during the week of March 8th. And we will be reviewing the applications and hopefully interviewing people for the position. And I am hoping that by mid-March, we will have the position filled. I noted for council that staff is working aggressively to try to identify grant opportunities that are available for different items. We had a presentation at our management team meeting from the USDA Rural Development on available grant opportunities. I want to thank Haley for joining us at our last management team meeting and providing an overview of their grant opportunities. And I know that our staff are already starting to think about those opportunities. And I know a couple of our staff members who have actually pulled the grant applications and are working on applying for grants. We also received information about the Michigan Transportation Economic Development Fund Category B grant opportunity, which provides up to $250,000 in funding for local streets for reconstruction, rehabilitation. And I've asked our DPW supervisor for any information on planned projects for 2022, which is what they're accepting grant applications for right now, so that we can try to take advantage of that and leverage our local funds with grant funding to do as much as we can for street improvements. And we will continue to look for other grant opportunities to assist us with our many, many needs. I provided council with a list of upcoming meetings as well as our current project list. And I'm happy to answer any questions that council may have regarding the administrator's report.
Darwin, I just wanted to make sure to recognize that State Representative Bronna Cali, she was also in that meeting on the ethanol plant.
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry. I did inadvertently overlook her in my report.
That's okay. I just wanted to make sure everyone knew that she was in there too.
I do have a quick question. How are we coming with aquatic center opening?
We are moving forward with our discussions on staffing. There are some decisions that I have to make on how we're going to staff the facility and how we're going to provide for oversight of those operations. I anticipate that I will be able to make recommendations to the council on that at your March 8th meeting. But in the meantime, we are working to try to catch up on the January and February steps that have been outlined in the guidelines that were presented to council recently. So we're working to try to catch up on those items.
Darwin, wanted to ask you then about the wastewater treatment plant. I know that you're continuing to work on that that task. Where are we on that task? If I understood in layman's terms, the building was supposed to be starting in January. Obviously, it is not. We're going to have to go ahead and go towards the April idea, I would guess, as the weather is more conducive. Can you elaborate just a little bit more on what's taking place there, please?
Sure. So the engineer is working with the general contractor on the cut sheets for the project. Those are still going back and forth for approvals. We have to start construction, and by construction, that's a pretty broad term, but we have to start work on the project by April 23rd. So that we can avoid having to completely reapply for the Part 41 application. That could mean that we start work on the some of the electrical work that needs to be done at the wastewater treatment plant. And we are working to try to get that work started as quickly as possible. So we are sensitive to trying to meet that April 23rd deadline. The actual construction, physical construction on the facilities itself, right now I'm being told that is going to be in May, but we are going to be having follow-up meetings with our engineers and with our general contractor to see if we can at all move up that date. But my last meeting with the engineer, she indicated to us that the contractor was anticipating a May start date for the majority of the work.
One of the questions I've been asked by residents then is the $500 fee per day still occurring?
My understanding is that it is, which is one of the reasons why we're trying to get this moved up as quickly as possible. And when I talk about the start of construction and the possibility of starting the electrical work, is because there is the possibility that that type of work could, I should say, end the daily fines that we are being levied by Eagle. I can tell you, and I provided some information to the council on what we have actually been billed for previously. We received one bill for $5,000 in July,
Right.
but we haven't actually received anything since then.
Right. And that's what I was surmising from what you were stating regarding the electric, that hopefully if that part of the project were able to begin, that perhaps that could be enough to say that we have started our construction on the facility.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That is my understanding, that Eagle takes a somewhat of a broad view of what start of construction means. So it could be just a matter of starting the electrical work. And we're trying to get clarification on that, but we're hoping that is the case.
I know a while back you mentioned that you were trying to get in touch with Eagle and talk to them about maybe negotiating a little bit. Have you had any successes?
I have not been able to get a hold of Tiffany yet. I am going to be reaching out once again this week to try to get in touch with her.
That was my question too, because I want the residents to know that we're not going to just roll over and cut a check. I mean, this is something that we obviously need to fight with Eagle with, or at least sit down at a table with them and discuss this whole fine thing, because, you know, we've been progressing in the capabilities that we have in front of us regarding the financing, regarding working with the engineers and the contractor to get the supplies. So I think that, you know, we're not going to just fork over a big check and pay these fines without some sort of argument, without some sort of discussion, at least with Eagle.
I am hopeful that that Eagle will see that we are making a good faith effort to move forward, and that they will take that into consideration when they make a final decision on what fines they are going to levy against the village. Like I said, other than the $5,000 fee that for the administrative consent order that they billed us for back in July, we have not yet seen any other charges coming from Eagle. So I think they want to see that we are moving forward diligently in good faith. And we'll continue our discussions with them and work as partners with them to make sure we're moving forward with the project, but also seeing what consideration they can give us as far as the fees or fines are concerned.
Has there also been any, I'm guessing not, but I'm going to ask anyhow. I don't see Randy on here. Has there been anything noted regarding the testing that is able to not take place or maybe soon to take place for Randy at the wastewater treatment plant?
I've talked to Randy just recently about that, and he is monitoring the situation. At this point, he still anticipates that in May,
more still.
he will be able to take the exam. But of course, things are fluid right now with COVID-19, but he is staying on top of it. He assured me.
I'd like to take a step back to the pool, Darwin, regarding the roof and the soffit and all that. I mean, are we seeking out contractors, bids, whatever, to get that work done as soon as the weather breaks? We obviously can't be roofing and tearing fascia and stuff off, you know, when the pool's actually open. That needs to happen before opening day.
Yes, we are going to be preparing specifications. We should already have specifications from the architect for those items, but we will prepare bids. We will look at the timing once we've received the bids, and we will determine whether that work can be done before the facility opens or if the work needs to be done after the facility closes for the season. I don't anticipate that these are critical items that have to be done necessarily before the facility opens for this year. But we do want to get the work done this year. So either before the facility opens or after it closes for the season, and we can have them start the work in September.
Thanks.
All right, thanks, Darwin. We're going on to any unfinished business.
I would clarify this as unfinished business. James, I appreciate the information you'd asked Darwin the other day, and Darwin, the information you provided regarding the pool and what was going on with the expenses. I thought that was a great question and some real good organization, because we had that quote, where is that lack of 35,000 coming from? And I think it was addressed within that paperwork. So I just wanted to say thank you for doing that. And it sounds like we're going in a better direction than perhaps we initially thought we were financially. Did you want to say anything about that, James?
I think it stemmed from the last meeting's conversation where we doubled the expenses for the upcoming season, not realizing that we would be, or there wouldn't be a need to duplicate many expenses. And I think they totaled out to about $55,000. So the budget that is set for this season is fairly accurate, and we should be, well, that target should be a great starting point, allowing us to execute a great aquatic season.
We're going on to any new business.
I have something for new business, if I may. Something I know that has been discussed a little bit in the past, and that was regarding our agenda and the minutes, our packet, if you will. Wondering if we could get that out to the residents prior to Monday. And I know I talked with Lisa a little while ago, and my understanding was that it's kind of just been that practice for a while now. And I know I've had some residents mention, could we see that prior to Monday so that they can maybe have that opportunity if they had a question, et cetera, to get that addressed ahead of time, or maybe not necessarily ahead of time, but kind of know what's coming down the road. And I was just curious if that's something we as a board should maybe consider.
Any suggestions or comments? Darwin?
Your Honor, I think it's definitely possible to have the agenda packet out for the public by Friday evening. If that is the will of the council. I had to smile when President Pro Tem Dusa brought that up, because that was exactly one of my thoughts this weekend was, it would be nice if we could get it out a little bit sooner rather than Monday morning. Lisa and I now use the iCompass system to do a lot more as far as the agenda packet preparation. So it is definitely possible for us to release that and have it available to the public Friday evening or late Friday afternoon. Lisa, if you disagree with that, you're not going to hurt my feelings by saying that, saying so. But I don't see any problem with us being able to do it on Fridays.
It will most likely be Friday evening, not afternoon.
Thanks, Lisa. I think that kind of like when we get ours, I know you have it enforced later, sometime there on Friday afternoon, evening. And thank you. If that's possible to do with getting it out for the residents, that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Moving on to any announcements. If not, then I would take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
Second.
You can call the roll, Lisa.
Gwen,
Yes.
Barb,
Yes.
Mike,
Yes.
Jerry,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
Bob.
Yes, meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.